I say good morning and welcome once again to Morning Spring. This is Western Spring Television, where we say it as it is. If it is important, if it has to do with matters that shape our nation, rest assured that we bring it to you right here on Western Spring Television. Emeka Daniel is my name. Thank you once again for joining us. And of course, I'm not alone this morning. Good morning, Temitope.
Good morning. How are you doing this morning, Daniel?
Great, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. It's with a grateful heart that we bid you welcome, viewers, to this midweek installment of Beyond the Headlines Array on Western Spring Television right here this morning. It is Beyond the Headlines where we bring you, it is right. I'm already quoting our sister stations, but it is Morning Spring right here on Western Spring Television. We'll serve you the headlines and bring you quality conversations around topical issues. That's all we do for you every single day. My name is Temitope Ajijolo, saying good morning.
Absolutely. We bring you the best every day from Monday to Friday. Talking about the newspaper reviews and, of course, the conversations, the powerful conversations, the interviews, the analysis we have right here on the show. You do not want to miss any part of the show every day from Mondays to Fridays. We'll take a short break right now. When we return, we go straight to the newspaper segment. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We start this morning from the front page of the Guardian newspaper. How insecurity, middlemen drive up rice prices, force mill shutdowns. How insecurity, middlemen drive up rice prices, force mill shutdowns. You'll find that story on page 6 of the Guardian. And just below that, you can see the analysis right there. Challenges in Nigeria's rice value chain. The first one right there, you see the gathering inputs. You have agrochemicals, seeds, land, water, machinery, and energy are all vital inputs for rice farming. Insecurity remains a major concern in terms of access to land for farming alongside machinery. Then, of course, we have the second one right there talking about agricultural production. This stage involves farmers, managing resources, propagating seeds, seedlings, planting, growing, and harvesting. Farmers complain of the high cost of fertilizers, leading to reduced yields, and also prompting them to shift to alternative crops such as sesame and sorghum, which requires less fertilizer and are more cost effective to cultivate. Then below that, we have the marketing, distribution, and of course, manufacturing. Aside from competition from foreign brands, high fuel costs and multiple checkpoints managed by service security agencies, which extort money from drivers, affects the cost of production and distribution of rice, of course. Then finally, you also have the costs and quality remains a concern for consumers making a choice between local and foreign rice. And finally, we have the consumption. Why rice has become a political product and staple in many Nigerian homes. The quality of what's produced determines continued patronage and consumption. So that's just the analysis right there. The challenges in Nigeria's rice value chain. But it's quite unfortunate when we have middlemen. So what these middlemen do is that they mop up the rice from the farmers and they determine the price. They fix the price, thereby sometimes making it difficult for the mills themselves, okay, to access those products. Since the middlemen are the one determining the price, it's quite unfortunate. It's affecting some mills that are actually shutting down just because of middlemen. Yeah. But again, why can't the mills themselves step in, and have, how do I put it now? Have their own middlemen, be in charge of the middlemen. okay, start mopping up the rice from the farmers?
Well, I think that sometimes things are predetermined. Over time, it has been done that way. And because the mills cannot handle, their own, the storage and all of that, and then still determine what the price will be. Because these people are the ones who sort, the distribution and all of that. But over time, I think that there are things that if they're not working anymore, as the times change, they need to change as well. But in this part of the world, we find that the way we've done things, years before, decades before, even centuries before, still the way we still want to keep doing them. And sometimes it really won't work. We just need to move past, some of these ways, and then probably we get better yields.
Absolutely. Still on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. Away from that, moving on to other stories. UN worries over dwindling donor funding as 4.6 million face severe hunger in Northeast. UN worries, United Nations worries over dwindling donor funding as 4.6 million face severe hunger in Northeast. You'll find a story on page 29 of the Guardian newspaper, talking about warnings over severe hunger, threat of severe hunger, especially in the Northeast, where we have, terrorism and, banditry ravaging those communities.
Of course, they can't be any better because we have Benue, other serious insecurity issues, and some other states that are really, up north, and then producing a lot for this side. And so it is to be expected. And the other day, Additional was talking about the rise in, poverty in rural areas and all of that. And the presidency was speaking against it. This is the UN now talking about rising hunger as well. Talking about the imminent hunger facing people up north and all of them. These are issues. And we'll still find before the end of the day, it's possible you hear, a counter opinion, or you hear presidents is slamming the UN and all of that. These people are just
such claims.
They can see if you decide to shut your eyes to these things. These are the bodies that will call you to action. Absolutely. If you're not, stepping up, if you're lagging.
All right. Away from that, moving on to other stories still on the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning. Boko Haram now deadlier, uses weaponized drones, says Borno Rebs. Boko Haram now deadlier, uses weaponized drones, say Borno Rebs. We find that story on page 5 of the Guardian. Wow, this is interesting. Now we have Boko Haram now using weaponized drones. We don't manufacture such in Nigeria, so it simply means they are bringing them in from somewhere.
Security chiefs, some of them have said that there is funding, for these people. Several people, even from Nigerian officials as well, apart from security chiefs, have also, laid claims to the fact that all of these people have, sponsors right there, in government, offices and all of that. Over time, we've been having people not speaking to issues. We've been having these things not looked at. And it has also been said by several analysts on our sister station that when you have insecurity on the rise and, for some years, and it is still there, nothing is being done, then it probably has the hand of top officials in government in it.
Absolutely.
And so we will continue to have this discussion once the sponsors do not want it to stop. It will not stop until people rise up and say enough is enough. And then what's it called? The local vigilantes as well. They're mostly people from those areas. What are they doing? All of these issues. And so we're talking about the fact that these people are more organized. Yeah, you still said it yesterday.
Yesterday I was saying that
2 days ago, and now
so today
they have organized.
I'm impressed for the first time. Absolutely. Quite unfortunate, but again, another thing we should take note of here is that it is the reps that are raising these concerns. So we are yet to hear from the security experts, so to speak. The security experts are always quick to, deny claims. They're always quick to say you're on top of the situation, as they say here in Nigeria. But now we have, concerns that these guys are actually using weaponized drones. I've always called them ragtag army. That's what I've always called the bandits, the terrorists. But now it's like they're stepping up their game, which means our military agencies or intelligence agencies also have to step up their own game. Quite unfortunate one, right? You find a story on page 5 of the Guardian newspaper. Away from that, moving on to other stories, still on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. FMCG firms ride on Naira stability, grow profits by 100%. Fast-moving consumer good firms ride on Naira stability, grow profits by 100%. Interesting. FMCG firms growing profits by 100%. You find a story on the business page, as page 15 of the Guardian newspaper. Away from that, lawyers storm National Assembly. Demand takeover of Bono, Zamfara assemblies. Lawyers storm National Assembly. Demand takeover of Benue, Zamfara assemblies. You'll find that story on page 5 of the Guardian newspaper. Defections. Delta federal state lawmakers switch allegiance to APC as Tinubu meets Oboriwori. Delta federal state lawmakers switch allegiance to APC as Tinubu meets Oboriwori. That's the governor of Delta State. Quite unfortunate, the defection continues as officially yesterday, members of the Delta State House of Assembly officially decamped to the APC and also the reps at the National Assembly. It's not, there's nothing, I don't want to talk about it. I
personally don't believe that these people are just waking up and deciding to the fact. I think just like a popular, what's it called? A popular church would say in Nigeria, let's go out fishing. APC is really going out fishing a lot. I believe that there are several consultations being made, and what is being laid on their tables, either by threat or by benefit, is really attractive and making them to really turn. It's either you fling something, as a threat, talking about washing away their sins, looking away from some of their, crimes, so to speak. But then after that, it might also be that there are some benefits being laid on the table for these people. I personally believe there's something wrong. Something terribly wrong.
It's quite unfortunate that...
it's unfortunate that PDP itself does not have its house in order. And this is their own doing. They should have done something about it, fixing their house a long time ago. And this is where it has led them today.
All right, that's that about Delta State. And let's not waste much time on them, because sincerely, they do not deserve much of our time. They've made their decision already. I mean, men who don't stand for anything, just they campaign, switching parties from one party to another just because of their selfish benefits. What more can we say? It is clear, it's glaring to everyone who's watching. Away from that, why poverty is worsening in Nigeria by Obi. Why poverty is worsening in Nigeria by Peter Obi. He has been making some statements lately, and the presidency have been trying to counter him. It's always like that. Even recently, the former AFDB bank, that's Hakim Additional, he made some claims about Nigeria's GDP. And Bayo Onanuga had to come out and say, hey, no, you're not correct. That Bayo Onanuga actually said that Hakim Additional is beginning to sound like Peter Obi. Whenever people make claims, whenever people say things, paint a grim picture of the situation in Nigeria, they always, come out to attack and say, no, it's not like that.
Especially Bayo Onanuga, that's what he's made for.
He's doing his job. He's doing his job. So Nigerians should know that he will always support, the presidency in any case. Away from that, moving on to other stories. Right below that, we have over 75% of Lagos food supply from other states, says Lagos state government. Over 75% of Lagos food supply from other states, says Lagos state government. You'll find that story on page 7 of the Guardian newspaper. Senate constitutes committee to oversee Rivers sole administrator. Senate constitutes committee to oversee Rivers sole administrator. The Senate yesterday, after resumption of their plenary, they've been on break recess for a while now, and they constituted a committee to oversee the Rivers sole administrator with Senate leader Bamidele Bamidele as the chairman of that committee. We'll talk about that later on the show today. Away from that, finally, from the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning, Senate grieves over Uromi Gombe killings, set for security summit amid concerns. Senate grieves over Uromi Gombe killings, set for security summit amid concerns. You'll find a story on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. And that'll be all from the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning.
All right, so let's move on to the Punch newspaper this morning. And we'll take the banner headline: NAS ex-generals demand urgent military rearmament. NAS ex-generals demand urgent military rearmament, but I'll take that again. It says rising insecurity. NAS ex-generals demand urgent military rearmament. That's on page 2 of the Punch newspapers this morning. It has a rider, and right there, Senate moves to tackle killings as retired military chiefs. Reps lament insurgents' use of sophisticated arms. All right, that right there is on page 2 of the Punch newspapers this morning. And take that from the top strip just beside the nameplate. The factions. Okowa denies 500 billion naira refund claim as Oborevori visits Tinubu. Okowa denies 500 billion naira refund claim as Oborevori visits Tinubu. That's on page 28 of the Punch newspapers this morning. And we move down there to the bottom strip. Senate may pass tax bills today. Panel to oversee IBAS. Page 7 and page 28 of Punch newspapers. Japa, UK considers tighter visa rules for Nigerians, Pakistanis. Page 16. And when people begin to constitute a nuisance, really, you find this action taken. Tighter visa rules by the UK against Nigerians and Pakistanis. On page 7 of the Punch newspaper, federal government kicks as Pat Utomi forms shadow government. Federal government kicks as Pat Utomi forms shadow government. On page 7 of the Punch newspaper this morning, and right here on talking about the pictures right here, Inspector General of Police Kayode Egbetokun was the force management team during a tour of the security technology and facilities in Bridge, US, Kuje, Abuja on Tuesday. Those photos there of the representation of that. And those are the headlines right here on the Punch newspaper this morning.
And from the front page of the Punch newspaper, we move to the Daily Trust newspaper. Let's check out some of the stories on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. How import waivers are crippling local rice mills. How import waivers are crippling local rice mills. Still talking about our local rice mills here in Nigeria. Import waivers. So when you give waivers to import rice, definitely they will invariably cripple our rice mills. We just saw the analysis on the front page of the Guardian newspaper showing, the challenges faced in the chain, of production, manufacturing, farming, marketing and distribution of rice in Nigeria. So when you grant waivers to importers to import rice, definitely the cost of production in Nigeria is rising due to various factors we mentioned earlier. So if it is cheaper to bring in rice, the people definitely go for foreign rice. It's all about, the cost and quality. Consumers, we look at the cost and quality. You see good-looking rice imported and it's cheaper than local rice. Right. Why on earth would you want to go for local rice? That's another challenge for our rice mills. Unfortunately, some of our rice mills are shutting down. That is the problem. Well, we talk about local content here. What exactly should the government be doing right now to reduce the cost of production? Because if it is not reduced, there is no way people will patronize local rice in Nigeria.
The only way government can have a say in all of this that we're talking about now is if they invest in people, in farmers, have investments in it, then you'll be able to set a blanket price. And then it might not even be able to be a blanket price because per states will have different factors that may affect production of things. But for government to be able to set a price, there must be some form of incentive coming from the government. You can't just, if the people are the ones
saying they should subsidize the production?
You can subsidize. You can make sure that there are fertilizers for the farmers. You can make sure that there are equipments, modern day equipments for farmers. You can give them seedlings. You can do a whole lot of things.
Absolutely.
And that would, give government some form of say or a stake in that.
Absolutely. Away from that, moving on to other stories still on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. Insecurity. Nigeria is bleeding. That's according to Akpabio. Nigeria is bleeding, says Akpabio. Of course, it's obvious. Even a blind man can see that.
And so that's Nigeria laughable. I don't even believe it's supposed to make headline. I mean.
But he just realized it. Come on, doctor. He just saw it. So he's raising concerns.
After
Nigeria is bleeding. Away from that, still on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. 1 million children at risk of malnutrition in Borno, Adamawa, Yobe. 1 million children at risk of malnutrition in Borno, Adamawa, Yobe. Uromi killings. 40 days after, families demand justice for slain hunters. Uromi killings. 40 days after, families demand justice for slain hunters. I'm still talking about the hunters, alleged hunters that were slain, they were killed in Uromi.
Nigeria
they're still demanding justice.
Is one of the places on earth where you find people begging for justice. Justice ought to come from,
of course, from institutions who are saddled with that responsibility.
Exactly. And you really need not beg for it.
Absolutely.
You stand up to your... If everyone was doing this job in the country, the Senate, to the reps, the presidency, if everyone was doing their jobs, we wouldn't be where we are today. But we have lapses in our institutions. And that's why we're decrying the state of insecurity, the state of the nation concerning education, the health. We'll always have that. And that's because we have people in government. We have people in these institutions and leadership positions who are not doing their jobs. In fact, they don't even know jack about what the job says.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When we have square pegs in round holes, that will always be a problem. Thankfully, in some sectors, we're beginning to see reforms. For instance, in the oil and gas sector, when the president, appointed, technocrats to take over the nation's public oil firm. Let's talk about the NNPCL. Now we're beginning to see a lot of things have been uncovered. The MDs of the 3 refineries have been sacked. A lot of the top officials have been arrested and now being investigated. For fraud, mismanagement of over, almost $3 billion. The question is, what were they doing all these years?
Exactly.
It took years.
And it took years where we were funding hundreds of billions to pay salaries of a moribund refinery. You were paying benefits, and you have Nigerians. Yesterday, I was just reading the papers, and I was saying some days ago, it had been some days ago, where local government chairman or council chairman in Abuja talking about the fact that money, 4 point whatever it is billion that was released to them by the FCT minister was not to pay workers wages. And I felt, okay, so what's the money for? Because they also asked, what's the money for? Okay, give us an account. I mean, the committee that was, interrogating them, give us an account of what you spend the money on.
No, people are not being held accountable.
People are not. They have
and
no.
And funny enough, we have some people who are working legitimately and they are not being paid.
They're not being paid.
In that same Abuja, state-owned broadcasting organization, talking about ASO Radio. As at the last time I checked, they've not paid their staff for over 8 months.
Can you imagine?
I spoke with with some of their top management officials. They said that it is the FCT minister
who did not release. Go on strike today, you begin to look for how you can dialogue. Why could you not rise up to the situation before? We're talking about don't be a responsive government. Be a proactive government. Let's talk about all of these issues. I really feel that conversations have been going on for too long. Like, everyone is used to the conversations, and that's why I'm going to really go ahead with one of the analysts we had when we were talking about the oil and gas sector reforms and all of that. He was of the opinion that this is just a charade. It will not hold water. Eventually, these people would also relax. You know, when you get a new job, you're always so fired. You have the passion. Along the line, it's either factors in that new office or just your own way. You know, when you get...
So you're saying after a while now that they'll just slow down. They
would relax. That's what I feel. But I'm hoping that I will be wrong.
But Nigerians need answers. We need answers. There's so many questions.
Have been asking those questions.
We need answers.
We need answers, but we're not getting them. And that will only get the lamentation of our Senate president that Nigeria is bleeding. Nigeria has been bleeding for a long time, and people know that. We needed to say something else. Okay, it is bleeding. What are you going to do about it? That's what I expected to see.
You know, from his position, sometimes it might not be easy to see clearly, but now, he just saw it.
Because you're not a Senate president for the people.
He just saw it clearly.
You're a Senate president for the elite. You're a Senate president for the government house. You're a Senate president for whatever, but not for the people.
And again, but yesterday, I think we saw that headline. I mentioned it yesterday about someone who was involved in electoral malpractice. I mean, an INEC official who was convicted, for manipulating, for changing figures.
So he's been convicted. Exactly. What happens to the
office holder?
Exactly.
What happens to the Senate president?
What happens to the system? What happens to INEC or the state or the state electoral body? What happens?
Absolutely. Because you've convicted someone of a crime, but the person who benefited from the crime is still in that office. Yeah. Now, you can liken that to the case of the story of the woman in the Bible who was caught in the act, adultery. They were about to stone that woman to death. The question is, did she commit adultery alone? You want to stone her to death? How about the partner? Quite unfortunate. Away from that, still on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. 6 killed in fresh plateau attack. 6 killed in fresh plateau attack. Quite an unfortunate one right there. You find that story on page 6 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Leadership tussle. 11 weeks after, Osun LGs remain shut. Leadership tussle. 11 weeks after, Osun local governments remain shut. You find that story on page 12. Of course, we've been talking about this, about the leadership tussle between the APC and the PDP in Osun State. I mean, the PDP local government chairman who were elected were told not to, resume at their offices just to avoid crisis. The APC ones have been, the ones in those offices for a while, and just drama everywhere. And up till now, they've not resolved it.
Talking about leadership, not for the people. You want to be a leader by force. You want to be an imposed leader because if it was about the people, you let someone even get there. Just to refer to the Bible, remember the woman who lost her own child and wanted the other child killed just because you know that your own child was dead. And so that's it. If I cannot get it, nobody is getting it. That's the kind of attitude that our leaders have. If it is about the people, if you have a mandate. I remember an aspiring governor at the time of one of the states in Nigeria. There were two particular administrations that he was supposed to have been given, or how would I put it, that he was supposed to have run, but because they were queuing, he was cheated the first time. It happened again the second time, and he still waited. And that's because he had a vision, and eventually he got there. And we can see how that state is today. I'm not going to mention the name of the state.
You should.
But it did happen. It did happen. But we're talking about, you want to be there either by crook or at all costs, and you would do anything to fund that. And that's what we have across the nation. And that's because the people themselves are not tired. They're not really not tired of the situation. Ladeju was saying it the other day on the show. The people are not suffering yet. You know, there's a level you get to when you're suffering, when you're really, really in very, very dire circumstances. Nobody will tell you.
Disagree. The people are suffering, but I think
they've not realized.
I think Nigerians are just too docile. You know, we say Nigerians are peace-loving and all that, but it has gotten to the point where we can categorically say that Nigerians are just docile, too docile. Exactly.
When you're not suffering.
Yeah, because leaders are doing what you're doing, and they're getting away with it.
We're just typically like the frog. He's always adjusting his body to accommodate the temperature until it is too late to jump out. Absolutely. I hope that we are not the frog here.
Absolutely. I hope so too. Away from that, still on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning, Benue lawmakers reject National Assembly summons, threaten legal action. Benue lawmakers reject National Assembly summons, threaten legal action. You find that story on page 13 of the Daily Trust newspaper. And right there, you see the picture of people searching for survivors at a crater of a bomb blast. There should be an Israeli strike right there. Talking about the crisis in the Middle East. Quite an unfortunate one right there. Then finally, at the bottom strip of the Daily Trust newspaper, Kano government directs LGAs to release 670 million naira for Emir Sanusi's cars. Kano government directs LGAs to release 670 million naira for Emir Sanusi's cars. 670 million naira for Sanusi's cars? Where do we start from?
Cost of governance.
670. We talked about it here. Are leaders really sincere?
No.
When they say they're serving the people.
Pageantry,
because all they care about, exactly, all they care about is luxury.
Yes.
670 million for cars.
After, being a public office holder. And just to inform you, the local government elections that took place in Osho, I'm sure that those people too already parading themselves as the new local government chairman. Status has changed. Therefore, the way you see them, something just changes. Once you're an elected official in Nigeria, or once you're an appointee of government, something changes about you. Suddenly, the people you were moving with cannot be seen with you anymore. Suddenly, the calls you could pick cannot be picked by you anymore. It has to be an aide to an aide to an aide.
It's quite unfortunate. It's quite unfortunate.
It is terrible.
When people are suffering, when a lot of Nigerians can barely feed, okay, a lot of Nigerians are living in extreme poverty. Just look at the World Bank report recently, the Africa Pulse report at the concluded spring meetings with the IMF in Washington, D.C., raising alarm of rising poverty in Nigeria, yet our leaders are squandering.
The Senate president, I heard, I said that poverty is a virtue or something like that. I was expecting it would come home from the funeral of the Pope, and it will come home, discard his vehicles, and tell the government that he does not want to earn salary from government anymore, that he does not want to, he does not want his motorcade anymore. He just wants a vehicle. And you can even discard that. I'm sure you have personal vehicles.
Absolutely. Until we reduce the cost of governance in Nigeria, because it is increasingly becoming glaring that all majority of these leaders care about is their own comfort.
The truth is, we will never have leaders who will willingly reduce the cost of governance.
We've had one before. We've had before.
We will not have leaders who would willingly. I'm sure somebody took that decision for them. And I'm sure there will be rancor.
People accused a governor in Nigeria, a former governor, he was a two-time governor in the south. People accused him of being stingy because he cuts down on the cost of governance.
Yes, of course, they will always accuse him. But I'm talking about one that is imposed on them, not by anybody, but by the Constitution. And that's what we will always get back to constitutional reform. We need that.
Absolutely.
We need it.
But who would reform the Constitution? The same members of the Senate and House of Assemblies who are overpaid?
No, that's the point.
Okay, who care about luxury and not just serving the people? Are they the ones to now say, oh, let us cut down on our own benefits, on our own allowances?
It's just so terrible that Nigerians are the same people that they elect in the offices. I'm talking about yourself, myself, and every other person watching us. Once we get into all of these offices, I just hope that we don't get to do the same things.
Quite unfortunate, 670 million
come from among us. And this is the kind of behavior, this is the kind of attitude we have towards a fellow human.
Absolutely. Quite interesting and unfortunate in a way. That's that, 670 million for MS Sanusi's cars. That'll be all from the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. And that brings us to a conclusion of the newspaper review segment of the show. We'll take a break, and when we return, the program continues. Please stay with us. You do not want to miss the next segment.